welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new video. What we're going to be discussing in this video is all things suspension related. Going to go over everything that I have done to this car, coilovers, sway bars, lower control arms, basically everything that I have done to make it handle the way it handles. For me, out of the box, the Subaru STI, this car in particular, handles very well. You can take it on some back roads on the twisties and it handles just fine. You can take it on the track, no issues at all. But for me, I like a little bit more performance in terms of feeling a little bit more planted to the road, a little bit lower. So going with a coilover setup was definitely something I wanted to do. I like perfecting the ride height. I love dialing it in just the way that I like it. So that was one of the first things that I did to this car. So the first order of business was coilovers. I picked up a set of Fortune Auto 500 series coilovers. I bought these things probably about almost 4.5 years ago. Again, it was one of the first things that I purchased after doing the initial cosmetic stuff, and I wanted to get the car a little bit lower, dial in the camber, dial in the damping and everything, and just make it feel that much better on the road. I have been through a few different setups in terms of height over the years, but this is my absolute favorite currently. In terms of the actual coilovers, like I said, they are the 500 series, so it's the basic set, but I did a few upgrades. First upgrade that I did to these was upgrading the springs. The default springs are 8K. They're okay, but they just don't typically last as long as I would like. I like to go a little bit above and beyond and go with a better set, so I ended up upgrading to the Swift springs. However, I went down to 7K for the spring rate. The reason for that is because I wanted to keep this car as comfortable as possible for a daily driver. In the past, I've done suspension setups that were just way too firm for daily driving, and ultimately it made me hate to drive the car. It was too uncomfortable, it was too bouncy, too rough, and it just was not fun to drive overall. Of course, it handled very, very well, but for me, driving a car in any circumstance was really important to me, so I wanted to bump it down to the 7K. Rides absolutely beautiful. I love the comfort that it provides, but at the same time, it still gives that really, really nice, firm, planted feel in the twisties, and I absolutely love that I upgraded to those springs. Another aspect that I upgraded at the time, which is now a default option on the Fortune Auto coilovers, is the radial bearings. Basically, it's a little perch that sits on top of the spring to prevent noises and clunking and just overall sounds that may come from running a coilover setup. That was something that I added on to the coilovers. Like I said, now I believe it is a default option, and all the Fortune Auto coilovers come with it, but definitely recommended. I have had some coilover setups in the past that just were way too noisy and I could not stand them. I ended up selling them off and going with a different setup because of noise alone. Now, in terms of the ride height, I've went over this in detail before in other videos, but I'll go over it really quickly. The way that I measure my ride height is from the bottom of the lip to the fender. So in the front, I'm 22 1/8, and in the rear, I'm 22 1/4. So I'm an 1/8 difference, a little bit lower in the front, which is the way that I believe this car looks best. The wheel arches in the front of this car are much larger than the rear. So if you actually go even with an even ride height all around, it looks to the naked eye actually uneven. It makes the front look a little bit higher than the rear, and I'm just not a big fan of it. So I went a little bit lower in the front just to give it a little bit of rake and make it look more even. Now, I really can't show the coilover since it's on the ground and it's behind the wheel, but I'll show you the camber plates as well, which is a really nice option. These come factory with camber plates. You don't have to option them out. I'm pretty maxed out, as you guys can see. I also have upgraded Titanium Works hardware for the camber plates as well. Up here, as you can see, here is the damping adjustment. It's a 24-way adjustable. Right now, I'm set at 20 all around from full soft. I like it a little bit firmer, but the main reason for that is because I'm also running 7K Swift springs. So if I were to go up a spring rate, say to 8K, I would definitely bump that down maybe to 15 or so. But for me, keeping it at 18 to 20 feels the best in terms of overall comfort and overall performance. Now, moving over to other suspension components that I have upgraded on this car. Since we're up in the engine bay, I figured I would go over this. Now, this is, I wouldn't say controversial, but a lot of people say that really doesn't do much. But for me, I feel like it adds to the whole package, kind of stiffens up the front end, because at any point, if you tie two parts of the car together from left to right or right to left, it's going to increase the rigidity overall of the entire feel of the car, so I'm going to mention it. Back here is the Perrin Strut Bar. I have it in white, obviously with the Titanium Works hardware. hardware. It's not something that I noticed right away, obviously, because I have a lot done to the car, but I do feel, like I said, it's something worth mentioning just because it does help tie 2 points together. Same goes for the front here. This is mainly for cosmetic. I really don't think it offers much in performance, but it is tying 2 points of the car together, so it does offer some type of rigidity and stiffening up the car a bit. This is the lower class garage front chassis bar. I love this thing. I love the way it looks. You can get it in a bunch of different colors. For me, I went with white just because that is the theme that I have on this car, and I definitely think it adds to the overall performance. Let's go to the rear of the car and go over some things that I upgraded out back. Might be hard to see. I might be able to see it down here, but if we zoom in, we can see that I have actually upgraded the lower control arms. These are the Super Pro lower control arms with their bracing as well. It actually allows you to adjust for camber, so if you see the bolt right here, you can actually twist it left or right, and it allows to add or subtract camber, which is a really nice option, especially if you're lowered as much as me and you're trying to dial in a specific fitment and get the camber that you want. As you can see, also I have the braces right here. It also adds a little bit of rigidity. It ties the sway bar into the actual low control arm, so it gives it a little bit more overall rigidity and performance for the car. Now, since we are laying on the ground in this parking lot, I figured I might as well get everything knocked out. As you can see, the red bar right there, that is the Perrin rear sway bar. It is a 25mm sway bar, which is actually the largest on the market that I have found. The stock rear sway bar is 22mm, so I felt going up to 24 was not enough. A lot of people were saying it is not really that big of a difference, so I went with the biggest possible. 25mm, absolutely love it. Another thing that I upgraded with the sway bar is the rear end links. I went with the Perrin poly rear end links. I'm not really a big fan of adjustable end links, mainly because there's more points of contact for it to fail. I've ran them in the past, they end up making noise. So I'm really happy with the Perrin poly end links. Very, very solid. They have poly bushings, so it's very, very suitable for daily driving, and I've had zero noise from them. Now, if we move along to up front, again, something that I'm not going to be able to show, but I'm also running the front Perrin end links, but I'm running the stock front sway bar. And the main reason for that is because the front sway bar on the STI is fairly large from the factory. I believe it's 24mm, so going up to a 25 really wouldn't make that big of a difference, and nobody offers anything larger than that. And for me, this car from the factory understeers a lot, so putting something stiffer in the rear is more important than adjusting the front. So that is another reason why I went with such a large rear sway bar, and this car handles really, really well. Very predictable, feels a lot better than stock. All of the sway and float that was there, which is not a lot, is completely gone. So there we go. That wraps up all of the suspension components, all of the suspension upgrades that I have done to my 2017 STI. You really don't need that much, and to be honest, just doing coilovers alone is the biggest difference. I absolutely love the way this car feels. It's very predictable. There's a lot of feedback that you get from the steering wheel. You feel every movement, you feel every single little thing in the road, and that is one of the reasons, actually one of the main reasons, why it feels so predictable and it is such a joy to drive. So that is it for this one, guys. If you have any questions at all, anything more specific about anything suspension related on my STI, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer. But in the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm not the only one that anytime I'm on a drive, I have to get out of the car and take a look at what I'm driving. It's always nice to get out and appreciate it. Man, this thing, I love this thing so much. Sounds so good. I'm so happy I got that exhaust rattle fix. It just makes the whole entire drive that much more enjoyable. I don't have to worry about and try to figure out what that rattle is, but man, this thing sounds good, looks good, feels fantastic. Can't wait to get the external wastegate on the car. It's gonna sound insane. Man, super clean. It's gonna be like 70 today. It's a good day.